Hi friends, and welcome to my weekly stream about the Uno platform. My name is Jérôme Labat. I'm the CTO of the open source project Uno platform. You can find us on GitHub, Discord, and a few other places where you can discuss the Uno platform. And I'm spending about an hour every week on Tuesdays taking a look at some of the news about the Uno platform or about everything that we've been doing. And this week taking a look at continuing the addition of C# uh, to the Uno playground that you may have already seen on our website. So this is the Uno playground. So it contains only XAML, and we're going to try to add and continue to add the C# to this website so that we can try a few things. Hi Johnny, thanks for joining. So what we've been doing recently is taking a look at the upgrades for the support for .NET 6 Mobile Preview 14. And that one's been a little bit complicated to add. There's been a lot of changes that have been happening with regards to the addition to .NET APIs for .NET 6 specifically. And a lot of breaking changes have been added by the .NET team along the way. So there were in Preview 12, then 13, then 14. So it made it a bit complicated for developers to follow what was happening. So lots of those breaking changes were mostly happening on public APIs that were breaking in some cases. Some of those were all rolled back, so that's good. But there are some others that were still needed, and especially one that is the support for native floats. And if you take a look at the set of binary breaking change that was in the directly in the Xamarin Mac iOS repository, you can see that some of the system and float stuff that was there, especially in Xamarin, has been moved over to system runtime interrupt and float. And the interesting part about this one is, hey there, thanks for joining. This package has been added as a compatibility, or let's say compatibility type for system and float, so that it works on iOS and on iOS specifically, so iOS, macOS, and Catalyst. And if we take a look at that NuGet package, we can see that it's been added quite recently. And for its contents, we can see that it has only system interrupt services, and it's for Xamarin and MAUI APIs for system interrupt services. So we're using it as well, so for the non-MAUI parts of it. So that's where we are. So that's the support for this. So the important part about this update is that because of Visual Studio 17.2 Preview 2, there were some new APIs that were broken. So that means that if you update to Preview 2, then you need to also upgrade to the latest Uno packages, so for 1.9. If you try to use it with the previous version of Visual Studio, it won't work. So it has to be exactly those two versions at the same time. And this is already outdated because there's a new preview that's been released about, I think it's a few hours ago. So it's Preview 2.1, which fixes some issues with the support for compiling an iOS app from Visual Studio on Windows. So you may want to update to that version. So just so you know, you need to update the Uno check tool so that it installs everything properly on your machine. And then we have all of this. So let's run it here. So you do the update. It will install Uno check on your machine. And then you can run Uno check with the --pre here. And it will run Uno check and validate that you have everything installed. So we can see here that I have 2.1 and 2.0 installed for Visual Studio. Let me roll back a bit. And you have to install Preview 2, otherwise Uno check will tell you that you're not up to date. Then it will install a few additional things, especially 6.0.300. This is a new version of the .NET 6 SDK, which contains some of the newer updates for iOS and Android. And what else? And then all the SDKs and workloads that have been added. So don't mind the fact that it's already RC1. It's RC1 because it fixes one of the issues that we have with command line builds. You may have seen that if you took a look at this, if you took a look at the documentation that is provided by Microsoft here with regards to Preview 14, that you have to do some kind of a dance at the end to make all this work. I'm not sure if it's there. No, it's on GitHub specifically. So if you take a look at the end, you got to do macOS build host preview installation workaround, and if you use RC1, which is not really a stable RC1, but it's available still, that allows us to not have to do all this. And since it's a preview and it works, it's good enough for now. So just so you know, it's a small detail for all this. So take a look, try building your applications using .NET 6 and let us know what that does for you, if it works, if it doesn't, maybe there's something that we can do. Maybe it's something that's on the .NET team side. Either way, let us know. Okay, so now let's go to what we wanted to take a look at, which is the Uno Playground and adding the C# support for this. So last week, we took a look at the support for Monaco, which is the editor that's in that view. And we discovered that the package that we were using to support multiple Monaco instances in the same application doesn't work. And there's a good reason for this. It's not built for this. It's actually based on some code that's from the UWP version of it. And when you're in UWP, each instance of the editor is inside its own web view. So there's no need to split everything in multiple parts. So that doesn't work when we're running inside of a browser directly, because if you instantiate multiple versions, if you create multiple instances of the same editor, then you will have the same kind of issues. So what we're not going to be debugging this during the stream because it's tedious and not particularly useful in that context. So we're going to fix this. What we're going to do is change the editor so that it uses a simple text block for now, using a fixed font size so that it makes it easier to read. So let's go back to our playground. We had a XAML pane here. So our XAML pane is this pane here, and we have the data pane. We added a new one, which is called the source pane here. And instead of using the Monaco editor for now, we're going to be using a simple text block. And in that text block, we're going to set the font family to Courier New. Not going to change the font size for now. And there's still that bug that's there. I'm running 2.1, and there's still the bug about the cursor that moves at the top every time. So not particularly good. But anyways, so Courier New, I'm gonna name this source text, and we're gonna test this out and try to figure out what we can do with compilation. So we're gonna add a few additional classes. I already built an application that does that a while back that is called the Skia Fiddle. And Skia Fiddle pretty much does what the playground does, but it was specialized in doing Skia content. So what we're going to do is just merge the two together so that we only have one application that does everything. Okay, so don't mind the output there. There's probably a few things that I missed there. So we have our C# here. Probably need to change a few things so that the text block takes the full size. I think I have to set it to multi-line. We have another one here for the data context that uses a text block. So let's take this one. It pretty much does the same thing. Text block, so it's called source text. Actually, it's a code box. I have a code box here. That code box is JSON data context. That's going to be good enough. So we have that control already. So it's going to be easier to manage. So let's use this code box. So it's going to be source. I called it source. It's going to be source code box for now. So that's going to be good enough. It's inside my border, which I don't need. Okay, so let's try it again quickly. Okay, so it refreshes and I still don't have it. I still don't have it showing. I wonder if, okay, so to troubleshoot this one, we're gonna go and see what's showing up here using the element picker. So what do we have at that location? So we have a code box, a grid, a div, a border, and something that's not particularly useful. We have an element stub and a text area. So the text area is here, and it's small at the top. Okay, so that's good enough for now. We'll adjust this at the end. Okay. So that's good enough. So that means we can type in some C# there and have it compile. And that's what we want at this point. Good. Hi, McNits. Thanks for joining. So now what we're going to do is go and see what we can find with the changes that we can do with that source code box. So first, let's bring the compiler in. So when I say compiler, we're talking about this class, which is with this file actually, which is a set of helpers that allow to create a library that can be compiled as part of the current running application, and then execute the code as if it were already provided by, as if it were compiled as the original application. So let's bring this one over. So let's put this in. Let's put this here for now. So let's put this here. So we're in a Uno demo samples for now. And we have our compiler. So we're probably going to be probably going to have to change a few things. There's still the apply code changes that's there. I thought they changed that part, but they didn't. So when you've built and started your application, every time you're going to be changing something, it's gonna do some hardware. So I'm going to be disabling this for now because it's going to be more annoying than useful. So we have the compiler that's there. So we have some additional dependencies to add, because you can see that we're missing some classes like Diagnostics and Syntax Factory and others. So those are coming from Microsoft Code Analysis. So that's the one that we need here. So we're going to bring this one over to our WASM app. We have some dependencies. We have already have quite a few dependencies, but let's add a few others. So we have code analysis. Let's see if it gets better. It should be soon. I made it to compile once at least. C# language is there. Okay, so C# language is there because it's available somewhere below, but compilation is not available. So I may need to compile once, which is interesting because it's supposed to be picking up the change, probably related to the hot reload parts. Okay, so it's good. So it was related to the hot reload that was not picking up the changes. Okay, so now we have our compilations. Basically, what it is a class that does that takes some C# as a string, plain and simple, and will create a syntax tree based from the source. Then it will initialize the compiler. Then it will create an in-memory assembly. We'll do some logging. And once it has done that, then it will return so the compilation result, which is an assembly plus diagnostics. So the diagnostics probably not going to be showing up yet. When we're talking about diagnostics, is something like you making a typo or something that's incorrect in the for the compiler. It will provide you some details about this. So it's pretty much what you have when you compile, and then it shows CS something error. You're trying to use something that doesn't exist. I'm just going to be enabling nullable is here because that class is nullable enabled. Okay, so there we have it. So another thing that we need to add is the .NET SDK source itself. So for this one, we're talking about some content that is supposed to be integrated into the application. And this is coming from the other project, which is the .NET SDK .SDK folder. So we have two here. I'm not sure exactly why. Probably going to be needing only one, but let's see. So I remember we made a few changes there to do some automatic compilation to generate a file list, the .NET SDK. Okay, so we're going to have to take both of them. It's likely that we don't need all of them. So the idea is that we need to not bundle all the files in the application, but as a set of files that are used from the storage file get file from application URI async. And the idea behind this is that we don't want to download all the files from the compiler when we're starting the application, but only when we're actually compiling something. So that it makes the application a bit more responsive when you're when building. So let's pick up those files. So we need those folders. We're just going to drop them into the playground. Yeah, let's drop them at the top for now. We're going to move them later on. Okay, so .NET SDK, we got a file list here, and then a lot of other files there. I don't think the file list is going to be useful for now. It has to be added later on. And then we also need to add something that takes the files list. The files list is from here, and we can generate something that's called a files list.txt. And the problem with the APIs that we're using here, so let me show you this one. So when you're using the compiler, we're using something that's called get file from a application URI async. And you cannot enumerate the files that are in there. You have to know ahead of time what you're getting from that location. So what we're doing is that we're generating a file that's called files list for the .NET SDK so that we can download the files one by one, knowing which one they are. So there's a question. Does this use the Roslyn ad hoc workspace or a custom one? Let me check this one. So what we're using is neither. The idea is that the workspace at this location, so the workspace is something that you can use when you have to manage a list of files and things like that. That's not what we're using here. We're just making what the ad hoc workspace is doing underneath. So the ad hoc workspace is probably doing what's inside this. So that's why we're not using that part at that location. It actually makes it easier because some of the ad hoc workspace things cannot work in WebAssembly, if I remember correctly. So that's where I settled to do with the compiler. Okay, so we have the files. We also need so we need this part so that we generate the right file list is here. Okay. So I'm going to be putting this around here. So we're generating the file list. So we need to go find the files at the right location. Actually, let's use the same separator. And I'm going to be placing the file at that location as well. Okay, so we have all the files that are generated in the files list here. So if I build once, we're probably going to be seeing the file being updated here. So let's clean it up to see that the file is generated properly. Oh, I forgot about the second part. So how does it handle the MS build parts? There are no MS build parts here. We're just using a string and nothing else. That's the idea. It's the bare minimum. Probably using MS build would be interesting at some point, but MS build doesn't like it that much to be hosted in WebAssembly for one particularly good reason, which is that threading is not enabled yet. But my assumption is that it will be possible at some point. So at that time, it will be nice to have the whole thing running in WebAssembly. So we can see here that the build failed because it's missing SQLite PCL core. So let's add it here. I added it here. There. Let's build again and see. And does the linker fail? So it says batteries V2 is not available there. It's probably missing another part. We get the bundled green that needs to be there as well. So let's add the bundled green. So Eric Sinks has a lot of interesting things that are happening with this, with the SQLite PCL raw, and has been working to get that working with .NET 6 without having to do some funky things around the use of the linker, which, by the way, makes me think, do we have a specific linker setting? No, we don't. Okay, so we don't need to have anything there set. Okay, so we can see here that Emscripten is starting up, and that's a good reason. It's because we're adding SQLite, and I don't know exactly why SQLite is needed at this point, but we'll see if we can remove this for now. I know that Roslyn uses it for some of its internal lookups, but maybe we don't need it at this point, so we can probably just remove it. So add some of the DLLs, but not the support for the WebAssembly library. So we're gonna figure this one out and see if it can work without it, because it makes the build a bit longer because Roslyn needs to run. So if we can remove this, that will help. It's actually significantly longer, but I'm not sure if it's because it's downloading. Let's see what it does. What's happening at this point? It's still copying files, so it's probably close to the end. Let's see. We're going to try to remove the support for SQLite underneath and see if it works better. Yeah, it's very long, so it's not going to be something that we can keep that way, because for a stream it's not particularly nice for you to wait and for the compilation to run. Okay. Okay, so not a good experience there. So we're going to be removing the other thing. Let's see what we can terminate. That's something that is not in the bootstrapper, the support for canceling. So we're probably going to have to change that at some point, especially when the build takes a bit too much time. If we can remove the, if we can stop by using control pause, it's a little bit better. Okay, so this time it should be a little bit faster. Yes, it is. Okay. So it runs, which is good. I'm not calling anything, but it still builds and runs. So even with the addition of SQLite plus the code analysis parts, it still means that we have everything that we need. So that's good. Now, if we go back to the playground, we have a few methods, particularly one that says, I think it's the update. So we're reading the XAML, we're loading some input there, and then we're yielding and setting the content there. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the compiler at that location and see how it fares. So, and see if we can write something in the console for now. So what we're going to do first is set some console.writeLine directly into the setup of the application, of the setup of the source box, so that we can just compile that and set it to run and see what that does. So let's see what we have here. So it's the samples loading. Let's put it here. So let's do text and let's do console.writeLine. Too far, and see what we can get to build there. Okay, so we have our source box here. So now we're going to be calling the compiler synchronously for now, because we can't do asynchronous. And we're going to do compile with the source code box text. Our results. Let's call it compilation results. And we are going to be having an assembly here. So the problem with that kind of compilation, and let's try it that way and see what we do have, because when you have an assembly that's being compiled, you may not be getting what you want. What I mean by this is that the code that I've just put is something that will be compiled to an assembly that contains a main. And that's kind of a problem, because if it contains a main, okay, so we got, well, that's very nice. Okay, so we have the compilation, we have 8 diagnostics, 3 declaration diagnostics, and something. So what we're going to do is show the diagnostics first, because we don't know exactly what happened. But the good parts is that it actually worked. So we got our compilation working properly. So if the compilation result is not null, and if compilation results diagnostics is not 0, we're going to be just outputting this to the console for now. We're going to output the diagnostics, and we're just going to do it plain and simple. So we got multiple diagnostics. We got I think we have 2 diagnostics. We've got a declaration diagnostics as well as the normal diagnostics. I don't know which one we're putting. We're putting the emit result diagnostics. Okay, so it's a emit result diagnostics. That's interesting. So I don't know which one we're going to be showing there. But let's try it up. So it is a item. We have probably a severity, and we have a description, I would guess. Descriptor, no. Message, maybe. Message is good. let's see what this one does. So the good part is that the good part is that we don't need to wait for too long for the application to be properly. So one question is it better to use different from null or is not null? Semantically, they're not exactly the same, because different from null is going to be invoking the operator different from different. So is not equal. So up, I don't remember the exact say up equality and not equality. I don't remember exactly the name. And if you're using is not null is going to be explicitly do a reference compare to null. So in that case, it's a compilation result which I manage, so it doesn't change much. But in other cases, it may have an impact. So it says a few things. So I'm missing a semicolon, and I'm also missing quite a few things there. So I'm missing system object, system void, and a few other things. So that means that we're missing quite a few things. And when that happens, that means that the compiler did not get all the base libraries to compile against. So that means that we're missing something. So let's change the default code that we have here. And I'm assuming also that system is not going to be defined, so we kind of have to explicitly define everything. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that we're probably not including everything in the right spot. So let's see the files that we have here. Probably going to have to set all those to be content, if content's available here. There it is. So by setting the files as content, what that means is that the files are going to be set as part of the package that will be hosted on the website that is hosting the WebAssembly application. But those files will only going to be read on demand. So only when the application actually requests them, not when the application is actually loading up. So that makes for a better experience when loading up the application. So that's the first one. And the second one is the file list, which also needs to be a content, but it's already a content. Okay, so I can see that the file list here is empty, which is not good. So that means that our build target here is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So we're .NET SDK source. We're looking at all the DLLs, and then we need to write the files to the file list. And for some reason, it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So let's try to debug this one and see why we're not getting our file at the right location. So we should be having that list to be filled up with all the files that are in this folder, but for some reason they're not. So it doesn't work. So let's go and figure this one out. So we're going to be using the build logging tool. I mentioned this every time on every stream because it's an amazing set of extension. But if you want to know where that comes from, you go to manage extensions and you install the project system tools 2022. If you install this, you're going to get this build logging window that shows up that allows you to see what's happening during build, and you can troubleshoot everything that you want your application to be doing and it's not doing during the build. So let's search for that build SDK and see if we can find any files. Okay, so it's effectively adding all this, which is good. But for some reason, it's not writing anything to that file. So maybe, there you go. It's writing it at the root. So that's because the path is not the right one. That's because I'm not able to read properly. So there you go. So let's do this. Okay, So now if I rebuild, my file is going to be filled properly, hopefully. There it is. Okay, we have all sorts of interesting things. So I don't know if the path is going to be the right one, so we may need to adjust that. But let's see. Because I think I did that differently originally, so maybe we're going to have to fix this up. Okay. So let's see what the compiler does when we're running it. Okay, so it says Uno Playground shared.NET SDK file could not be found. So that means that we don't have the right path. Most likely because the path here that we have inside of the files list here is not the right one. Probably because we should be stripping this out. I'm not sure if we can do it here. Let's try. Let's try. Let's do a bit of magic. A bit of MS Build magic. If my memory still serves with all the changes that we can make inside of an item group in MS Build. Looks like it worked. So you can, just so you know, you can do a replace here by removing some paths. So because we're adding files there with a globbing, and the globbing includes the paths completely. So what we want to have is only the end of the path. So because this won't change, we can remove this and get that to do what we want. Okay, so .NET SDK, C# file CLR cannot be found. Probably missing something else there. Looks like we're not loading the files at the right location. Maybe because we're manipulating the files so that they're changing types. Let's see. In the compiler, we're loading the files one by one, but we're doing some manipulations to search the files for another location. Not sure exactly why. So let's remove this for now and see if it helps. Okay, so is this time better? Still not good. So it says /.NET SDK source Microsoft C# CLR file cannot be found. So in this case, this means that the path may not be the right one. So what we can do is go and try to see what the resulting website has generated as the set of files that can be used. So in the dist folder, there's a file that is called Uno assets, if I remember correctly. There you go, Uno assets. So we got lots of things with JavaScript. And we got .NET SDK and we got .NET SDK source with a slash at the end. So maybe it's because we have a / that's not supposed to be there somehow. Let's see. What are we doing? So the file that we're looking for, there's a / that's not supposed to be here. So let's write it up. Let's see what we're searching for. I'm not too sure exactly which file we're going to get. And the files that are located in the output are actually DLL files. So okay, so that may be another reason why we have other changes to make. Okay, so we tried downloading a few things. Oh, okay, so the download actually worked for most of them, but not all of them. Okay, so let's see. Or is it because we're trying to download everything and just one of them is failing? That could be as well. The file /.NET SDK source cannot be found. So could it be because of the / as well? So we're loading with the / and inside it's a /. Could be that. Could be that. So let's see. We replaced the backslashes with /. Does it help? Otherwise, the files are located properly, so it should be good. Okay, so now it searches for CLR, but the file is actually not a CLR. So let's remove that one as well. So we had to replace the .dlls by .clr because previously the files that were located in specific locations were automatically renamed from .dll to .clr, but it depends on the actual files that you're trying to get. So some of the files may not be needed. And there you go. That's much better. Okay, so now we have the files loaded up properly, but it's still failing for some other reason. But we have something that doesn't work. So it says metadata file in memory simply could not be opened. P is not a managed metadata. So it may be because the files we're trying to get are not the right ones, and they should be named CLR, but they are not. And the service that provides the DLL is not trying to. I'm pretty sure that it's not providing us the right response. So it gives us a gzip of text HTML, so it's probably it's empty, completely empty. So it's not giving us anything useful. Let's copy the link address to see if it's yeah, okay. So it's the path is not considered valid. It may be for a few reasons. So it may be because the .dll is not supposed to be downloaded. It can be something like this. I wonder. We don't have anything here, so we may need to take a look at the C# fiddle to see if we had something with .clr. Ah, there you go. That's the one. Okay, so that's why I had the change before, and that was not the right one. Okay, so we have still have the content to change here, and to add the files with the right names. And because .dlls cannot be downloaded in IIS by default for security reasons. But yes, Pedro, that's exactly true. But it's in that case, it's the miscoordinates should be added, but it's not there because the file is not downloaded properly. So let's change this again. So it has to be .clr. The download was the right one. And let's do it again here. So we're downloading .NET SDK. So we're missing one copy here. So it has to be in an item group. So let's add it here for now. And what we can do also is make sure that the files that we added in that folder are not supposed to be are not added at all. So we can remove them from content. So we added them as content, but they actually don't need to be content because we're copying them to the other folder so that they are those files are set as content. So the build tooling is going to get them and wrap them as CLR files so that they can be used embedded into the application, but using the .clr extension and not the .dll extension, which is causing some trouble here. Okay, so almost done. I don't know what Visual Studio is doing when changing the build action. There are many files, but you know, I don't know exactly what's happening there. Okay, so now we have, let's build once because I don't know. Well, let's see, let's try it again and see if we're getting everything working correctly here. So let's see, Pedro, if we have the right thing now, because we're going to be downloading the right files now. So let's take a look at the console again. And what do we have now? Okay, so it doesn't find the .clr file, most likely because it was not packaged correctly. Why is that? So let's go. Oh, because the path is not the right one. So let's use the right path. Okay, let's try again. Let's see if crossing fingers is actually making the build pass. Okay, so we got the compilation and no errors. Wow. Okay, so just one diagnostic, and it says program using top level statements must be executable. Okay, so that's a very good reason, and we're giving it a single statement, and that single statement cannot be compiled as something that we can execute. So what we're going to do is try to wrap something up. So either we do this, and maybe we can change that to make it as an executable somehow, because we're going to have two problems there. Let's say I have my right hello here, but I want to make a class, for instance. If I want to add a class here, I have to have a top level class. So there are two things that I can do. Either I wrap everything inside of a generated class outside. But if I do this, then the types will need to be nested inside of the generated here, which kind of sucks because you won't be able to always works for you. So you always cross your fingers, Darren. That's probably what's happening because it doesn't work for me every time. So if we do this, then we're going to have the generated class here. So that means when we're in XAML, then we're going to have some trouble because we won't be able to, let's say, use that class. That doesn't work. So we're probably going to have to find a way to make the compiler accept that we are an actual executable and not a library. So let's see how we can change that. And that I don't know because I never poked with that one specifically. So maybe there's some way to get that to change and actually, build an actual executable. So maybe there's another method that we can do. Okay, so there's output kind. So maybe that's the one we're looking for. Let's see what kind of outputs that we can have here. Is there an executable? Okay, so either Windows. So let's try console applications first. Maybe that's going to be enough. So what I want to have is only top level statements so that we can execute something right away as a setup, and then maybe able to use additional content that comes afterward. Got compilation, emitting assembly, and we got a binary. Okay, so we have a binary. Yeah, Sharp Lab is definitely having something that looks like this. Yeah, it's a source of inspiration, that's for sure. Okay, so we got the binary assembly, so that's good. So what that means is that we have an assembly now, which has a main that we can look up. So I'm not too sure exactly how we're going to find the main entry point automatically, probably because it's named in such a weird way. So let's try to find this one out. Probably we're going to be doing a bit of reflection for now to find that entry point, unless it's provided by the compilation. I don't know. Is there a member in compilation that provides us with the generated entry point? Maybe there is. Maybe there is. So we got the compilation here. Let's see. Is there an entry point for this? Get entry point. There you go. Oh, wow. Okay. The Rosin folks have everything. Can't it be a script output type? That's a good thing. Did you see script output? I don't know. Because what is a script? I mean, if you're building a script, is it something that you're executing somehow? So with regards to the .NET runtime, it has to execute an assembly. So your script has to be compiled to something that is an assembly at some point, and then executed somewhere else. So in this case, Roslyn is able to make a DLL. Then the output type will be something that it knows about, and in that case, the console application is probably the only one that we can care about at this point. So we have an entry point, which means that in our compilation result we can provide this here. So it is going to be a method name, probably. So do we have compilation here? What can we do with this one? We get there you go, metadata name. So that's the right one. So there we can do a get type entry point. Entry point. Can I add the entry point here automatically? I hope so. It's in a record, so it should be. There you go. Okay. There it is. We got get entry point. It needs a cancellation token. That's interesting. Okay, so we don't have a cancellation token for now, so let's pass a none, for instance. Cancellation token. Probably missing the yeah, I'm missing the using here. So I don't know if you've noticed, but IntelliSense seems to be behaving quite well since preview 2. So I don't know if they changed anything there, but it's behaving quite nicely. Metadata name has to not be null. So let's actually validate this, because we actually need a we do need an entry point. So if we don't have an entry point, we have a problem. So if the entry point is not null, so here entry point metadata name, and then we can fail here if contain a top level statement. Okay, probably gonna have to explain that to users if they try to figure this one out themselves, but so there you go. Okay, so we have the entry point. That means then in here, when we have the source, we should be able to get, so let's say if we do have an entry point, we don't need to, we can do is not null here, that works. And then we're going to be doing compilation result dot assembly get. So we have, that's actually a problem, because the get metadata name needs to be split in two. So we'd actually need two things. We need the containing type and then the method. So let's change this. Entry point type and entry point method. I'm not resorting to tuples, but Yeah. We need the containing type, full name. Is it name or for name? So two display string. What we'll do. And we need the name. That'll do. Okay, so we have entry point and entry type. Entry point type, entry point method. So we have the two, so we can do now a dot get type. And then we can also get the no, it's actually not that, it's type. And we get the method, which may not be public, so I don't know about that one. So we're gonna have to figure this one out. Maybe it's not public. We're gonna have to play with the bindings. Entry point method. And then when we have the method, then we can, so entry point is not null, doesn't say anything here. It's not particularly useful. So it's entry point type. And actually we needed that one here. And now we can do invoke. So what I don't know here is that if it generates a method with the parameters or not. So we're gonna have to guess about that one. So let's invoke, just plain and simple like this. And let's give some errors as well. Unable to find type, entry point type. And same thing with the method. Unable to find entry point method. Okay, so what we should be having is just hello showing up in the console. All this for hello. So let's see. Okay, so unable to find program something. Okay, so that looks like an internal type. So that means that we're gonna have to do some reflection using binding flags. So it will be not this one. Okay, so get type doesn't, was it the method that was not unable to find type? Okay, so the type cannot be found. Okay, so that's interesting. Because it's supposed to be providing, or maybe, did I miss something in the compiler? Is it supposed to be named that way? Entry point type is supposed to be type and then method. So maybe we're not getting the right type. So we're searching for the type and then search for the method. And, oh, that's right. I swapped the two, so there you go. So we're not finding the method. So what we're actually not finding is the method, and the method has to be using binding flags. Yeah, that's correct, Pedro. I swapped it. That's why it's not it was not giving the right thing. So we're searching for non-public and binding flags public as well. So that's fine for both. Okay, so let's try again. And I should have been smaller. Well, the whole all along. I stayed big. I stayed big in the whole thing. It was not particularly useful. That's better. Okay. So let's see. We got the binary, and it said the number of parameters specified does not match the expected number. So that means that we need to adjust a few things. Let me know there next time if I forget, but that was not supposed to be like that. Just forgot to take a look at the screen. Okay. So that means that our invocation is not the right one. So that means that we need to pass in probably one parameter, which is the list of string. It is a I did forget to change the value. That's correct. I forgot to change the values. There it is. So I changed it this way. So now we have to create, it creates with the args. So now we have to add a new parameter. So is it a params here? So it's not a param. So we have to make a new array of objects. Let's place an empty string array. So let's do this for now to see if it works, and then we can use another one instead. It's a bit too big, and we're gonna have to move this out from that method, but because it's not particularly nice. Okay, so we got our compilation, and we got a hello. There you go. Okay, so the code that we have here has been executed here, so that's good. Let's see if we can, we do this. Does it do anything in there? Oh, not save. If I do this, compilation hello 2. Okay. So we have a binary that's executed every time we change something. So, well, not in that sense because it doesn't do anything, but still. And one thing that we could do is validate that we're actually compiling something. So let's do something like this. My test class. And then if we do, let's try something like this. If we do system.type.getType, well, there's not too much space here. And then we do my test class here. I did text changes, so we're gonna have to change this. Okay. Hello 2 doesn't find anything, but it compiled, which is good, but it didn't find my test class because there's a space, of course. What about this? What do you know? Okay, so the code that we wrote inside is reflecting itself as a top level statement using interpolated string that's in the class here. So that's good. So now let's do something additional. Let's see. So when we're in there, we'll probably have some issues with the fact that we cannot reference uno. So let's see if I do let's say framework element. It's probably gonna fail, but we'll see. We'll see, because the assembly is not being referenced. So there you go. Okay, so Windows is not available here, and there's a good reason for this. We're not having the binaries for Uno at that location. So there are a few things that we can do. I don't know if we're going to be doing it right now, probably next week. But the idea is that maybe we should be adding something like, I don't know, something like this, kind of a reference, like package ref or something. And if we do this, then we can download some assemblies, and then based on the fact that we're targeting, let's say WebAssembly in some fashion, then those files are going to be added automatically to the compilation. Could be something like this. It would make it easier so that still we don't have any kind of UI to do some package references, so it stays inside of a single file. So that could be something like this. And so the only thing here is that if we do this, then we're going to have to add support for multiple, or loading the package and trying to guess the files that are coming up. So I'm not too sure yet. The other part that we could do is just enumerate the assemblies that are part of the current application and just download them as part, or use them as part of the current compilation. So that could also work, because we're already compiling a WebAssembly application, so the Uno platform assemblies are already part of the compilation. So that could be one thing that we can do. I don't know if we can get the files that way, because the assemblies are not something that we can add from in memory. They're not part of the file system. They're loaded up as binary blobs, so it may not be that useful. But yeah, it's something that is of interest. Okay. So there you go. That was an interesting one. So next week we're going to be trying to see what we can do, and we can load up the files for Uno, either by implementing some package reference download or something. Maybe we can add support for NuGet package downloads, maybe using NuGet.org. That would be something that could be interesting, because the NuGet Package Explorer is doing this already. You can download the NuGet packages directly, so that could be interesting to make. So that's it. I hope you learned a few things along the way, as I did, because now I do know that we can do some C# with top-level statements inside of WebAssembly. So that's going to make for an interesting Uno Playground updates when it's finished. So until then, have some fun and happy coding, and see you next week. Bye for now.